probably began with my childhood. And both my parents, we lived on a ranch in Alberta when I was about 2. My father had this, fantasy a bit about being a cowboy. Anyways, we lived on this ranch. But there was all those horses around. Came back to Saskatchewan, lived at my grandfather's place. He had horses. He was sort of an Indian cowboy. And of course, my parents are both creative, and as a child, I'd sit around and watch them drawing pictures. And I was totally impressed with one of my mother's drawings, which was a horse. It was so realistic that, I would try and copy it. Not, of course, it was a child's drawing, but that all sort of stuck with me. But whenever I went to visit my grandparents, I would be, horses around, things like that. But as I developed, of course, 60s, 70s, big changes. There's a lot of things. At that time, I didn't imagine myself moving back to the country. It was, cities and doing exhibitions, and the idea of horses it was gone. So for me, it was like a dead fantasy almost of going to the country and being around horses. And of course, in the history classes, you're looking at, Plains, Indian horse culture, and a lot of other cultures, but of course, being from the Plains, that was the biggest inspiration, and just seeing a lot of historical work, ledger drawings of horses. And at a certain point, I became interested in certain spiritual objects, say like shields and teepees, where people would have visions, and they would express these on different items, like again teepees and shields and rock drawings. Yeah, so the Plains horse culture was a big inspiration. A very big interest in visionary works, and wondering how real this phenomena was, and if these people were actually experiencing visions, and whether or not there was some kind of symbolic language that was being expressed in the between this world and the spirit world. And of course, I was wondering what the role of horses were. And these two very similar visions, one Christian and the other one from the Plains, Black Elk's vision. Both of them were horse visions, but yet very similar. And I was wondering about this, these two experiences, just how real they were and what had influenced them, for them to have these experiences. And over the years, I eventually learned more about history and where these ideas came from. And even though Black Elk was 9 years old when he had that vision, it's called Black Elk's Great Vision, you eventually learn that the Jesuits were on the Plains at that time, and they had been trying to find ways of teaching Indigenous people, Christian narratives and values. So they had this, these teaching tools, and in there's like two roads, a good road and a bad road, and which you find in Black Elk's vision, the red road and the black road. One good, one difficult. And of course you also have the 4 horses, each having a specific color. And in Christianity, with the horse vision in there, which is in Revelations, you also have the 4 horses. But what I was seeing and what I found interesting were these underlying structures of cycles and patterns. So back in the early 80s, when I was sort of becoming interested in performance, the first horse dance that we did was incorporating these structures and trying to follow very set patterns and just to see how it would play out as a piece. And in those early works, I performed in those early works, and over the years we just kept working on it. I arrived at a point where I thought, no, ritual's not, or the stage is not, the place for, specific rituals and pieces with certain content. So everything after that became very abstract. A person's own personal life and, spiritual, things do happen if you're, in tune with nature. Ultimately, I would say it's being in tune with nature. So that was the original idea for this piece and how it evolved into these performances. My partner, who was with me for quite a few years, and then we divorced, and then continued working together. We'd often share studios, and she'd take my things, I'd start playing with them. So she took one of my horse skulls. I had started working with it in the dance, and then she asked me if we made copy. She made a copy out of paper mache, and so all of a sudden we started making. She was doing this. These paper horse skulls. At first they were paper, but then we started 3D printing them because we started incorporating more dancers. So the last maybe 10 were 3D printed, then wrapped in sort of really nice handmade paper. Same with the buffalo skull in there. That's paper over top of a skull, and then skull taken out and it pieced back together. So very light props to work with. And of course, over the years, working with a lot of different dancers and working with the school of Winnipeg contemporary dancers. I've been working with them for the past, I think, 4 or 5 years. And the horse piece is one of the pieces that they've been learning. And that's who will be coming here in May, is the Winnipeg Contemporary and a few other dancers. Yeah, the 60s, it's just a great time. The music, I feel so fortunate to have. At that point, I was living out in the country, back out in the country, small town, teenager, and just a lot of activities happening. Civil rights movement I guess that would be a very big event that affected me. In 73, 73 or 74, worked with, had a summer job with Native youth in Regina, and there learned about Wounded Knee, and that was when I decided to enroll in those Indigenous art programs, just to learn more about what history I wasn't being taught. If anything, that would be the biggest change, was realizing that, wow, the history we were being taught in schools is all wrong. There was a whole other side to it. Looking at other traditional forms of expression, it would have been sand painting that inspired this. Sand paint, a very ephemeral expression, in a way similar to the Tibetan sand paintings, which get destroyed at the end. I was very much interested in ephemeral works, which also brings in, death. The skulls and death. Nothing lasts. Everything, eventually, turns to dust. But of course, galleries don't want to hear that. The dancers also were, dancing with the skulls, horse skulls. And they don't have to be together. Either can function on their own. The thought of bringing the performers from Winnipeg so that they could see it and see what had inspired the piece that they're working on. I thought that was good. A good opportunity to do that.